Welcome back. You're watching ED Inside. Land acquisition is one of the biggest problems facing industry in India. And many believe the new land acquisition bill will create more problems than before. ET Now's policy editor Supriya Srinath caught up with Jairam Ramesh and began by asking him if 55 days was too short a time to formulate something as important as this bill.
Well, you know, it's been in the annual for 4 years, so I could have taken another 4 years or 3 years since we'll have elections in 2014. No, I think it's high time that we came up with this bill. We made one attempt in 2007, we made one more attempt in 2009, and now I had this opportunity of doing so, and the third time. And yes, the Prime Minister was very keen. He announced it from Redford on the 15th of August.
That's right.
Mr. Rahul Gandhi, when he did his Padyatra in UP on Bhatta Parsol and the other land agitations, spoke about his determination to bring about a bill in the winter session. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, the chairperson of the UPA, also had spoken about this. So clearly there was a convergence of views at the top that we need to bring the bill.
Was your brief that please get a land acquisition bill in place as soon as possible?
I mean, things don't happen that way in politics. You're not called and said we are
You
moving
were
you
given this
here
ministry
for
for a
doing
certain
this.
reason.
But you know, it's up to me to make what I did. And I joined here on the 12th of July. And I had my first meeting. I came here at 6 p.m. on the 12th of July after being sworn in at 5 o'clock. And the first thing I told my officers is that my first priority is to bring this bill, because you know I had been aware of what had been happening for the last 4 years, and clearly this is something that we need to deliver on. Now it was touch and go. It's not happened any time before that a bill from conception to introduction gets done within 55 days. I had to take Mamata Banerjee along. I went to Calcutta twice to bring her on board.
Was she the toughest to convince?
Mamata Banerjee is a very reasonable person. You know, her media image is completely contrary to what you know. I speak a little Bengali. You know, that helps. I'm fond of Rabindra Sangeet. That helps with her. We have a chemistry that we share, which is very good for quite a long time. I went twice to Calcutta to bring her on board. There were different points of view within the government. I mean, you know, Planning Commission, the Industry Ministry, the Finance Ministry, because it is natural. I put out a draft on the 29th of July, which was the first draft. That was my draft. It was a unilateral draft, so to speak. Now, it is that draft that became the basis for discussions. And on the 7th of September, we introduced the bill, which reflected the collective wisdom of the cabinet. It reflected, if you may call it, a consensus view, and I have no hesitation in saying it also reflected a compromise, you know, between the need to promote industrialization and urbanization on the one side, and to assure a fair and equitable compensation for land acquisition.
I'm going to
on the
talk
other.
about industrialization and why you perhaps received as many bouquets as the brickbats that you received on this. But let me ask you a very quick question.
By the way, I received more bouquets than brickbats. The brickbats are only.
You haven't been able to convince everybody.
The brickbats are only from the builder associations, from certain sections of CII and certain sections of FICCI. But if I were to, no, but she's not happy from a different point of view. I mean, you know, she's not happy that I've not been, you know, bold and progressive enough. But she has no problems with the basic structure of the.
You've spoken extensively about Rahul Gandhi's contribution to this
absolutely.
bill, his suggestions,
No question.
everything, you know, how he spearheaded this in certain sort of a way, at least from the Congress party's point of view. Who is the architect of this bill, Jairam Ramesh or Rahul Gandhi?
No. See, I am the minister. This is a Congress party bill. Okay, the Congress party is the single largest party in the UPA coalition. I am here because of the Congress party. I have to implement not my agenda or some narrow technocratic agenda that we conjure up in a closed room. Ultimately, we are politicians. I represent a political party with a clear political agenda, and it's the Congress party's mandate to me, the leadership of the Congress party's mandate to me, to bring this bill with these priorities. Clearly, the focus was to ensure, as I said, a fair and just compensation for landowners and for livelihood losers, but at the same time also ensure that we do not put unnecessary hurdles and brakes and impose an intolerable cost on industry and on the economic agents.
I like the fact that you at least admit this is a political answer to the
Yeah,
crisis that's
absolutely.
going
I mean, you know,
on, and there is no shying away from the fact.
Unfortunately, all of you in the media, you use the word politics in a very negative connotation.
I speak about it very positively.
I still think that, politics is the blood, is the lifeline of a
And politics
democracy.
is the answer to all our problems.
Yeah, it's all about the
Yeah.
answer to bad politics is not the absence of politics. But the absence to bad politics is even more politics with the hope that the good will drive out the bad. So I use politics in the true sense of the term, which is being sensitive to different points of view, taking their concerns on board, going through a process of consultation, compromise, and ultimately arriving at a solution that is broadly acceptable to all. I won't come out with a unanimous view, but I will come out with a consensus view.
But there are competing state assembly bills that have also come in. For instance, UP has introduced a land
Well, they have
acquisition
a
bill.
policy. They don't
How
have
is
a
yours
bill.
better?
They don't have an act as yet. They have a
Yeah.
policy, but clearly this bill is, our bill is vastly more progressive and superior to the UP policy. But I have studied Gujarat, I have studied Karnataka, I have studied Orissa, I have studied Haryana, and I can confidently say that our bill is a step forward up in comparison with the state legislations. Now what will happen is states cannot subtract from this legislation. States can only add to this. So they will use this as a baseline and add to this. Suppose some state wants to say 4 multiple in rural areas, we want 6. They are free to do so.
You can't go below 4, but you can
Can't go
also
below 4.
anytime
No,
go
they
below
can't go
4.
below. Yes,
There is
sir.
something that struck me about the bill when I read it first, and you said that the purpose of the land acquisition cannot be changed. Was that something that was bothering you a lot?
Yeah,
You spoke
people are
about
acquiring
it.
land and for purpose and selling it off for shopping malls and luxury condominiums where probably you live.
I don't trust
So this change in 2 things were happening. You are acquiring, as I said, party A is acquiring for purpose A, but party A then uses it for purpose B. Okay, that's one mala fide. The second mala fide, that is, party A is acquiring on the assumption that party A will use, but party A sells it to party B, party B then sells it to party C. Both these malpractices we have taken safeguards in this. So when you say public purpose, you should be honest. And in fact, one of the key elements of this legislation is the social impact assessment. And here again I have learned from my previous job, where the environmental impact
Important lessons
assessment
drawn
is
from there.
a complete joke in our country.
Yes, sir.
Because if I am putting up a steel plant, I get an environmental impact assessment done. If I am putting up a port, I pay for it, I get an EIA done. So there's a huge conflict of interest.
That's right.
I tried to change it.
Ah.
I've not been entirely successful in my previous job, but we tried to change it. Here, the social impact assessment is not done by the land acquirer, it's done by the state government. So there is a certain integrity to the social impact assessment.
You've said, I do not need an applause, I do not need a certificate to my commitment to growth from India Inc. All that is fair and all that is obviously the right thing to do. But I want to ask you this question, that why did you then look at a watered down version of the bill? A little less, there was a 6 times compensation,
Yeah.
why did you set
I
it
think
for 4?
the rural multiple came down from 6 to 4. It was in response to concerns that had been expressed, that perhaps, not just by industry by the way,
That's
I
right.
might tell you by some politicians in Punjab, in Kerala, in some other parts of the country, that the rural multiple might hurt the acquisition of land for the diversification of the rural economic structure. So it is in response to that I made some of these modifications.
Changes.
So, to compare the 29th of July draft
you
with
had
the
in the
7th,
draft.
it's an unfair comparison, because as I mentioned to you, the 29th of July draft was, my draft had I been Stalin, but I'm not Stalin mercifully. We are living in a democracy, we are
And
listening to
thankfully
different
so.
points of view,
Yes.
and I got different points of view.
80% consent will perhaps take care of the turmoil that happens after acquisition of the land, and it's a good thing and people should welcome it. The criticism against this is that this will not enable industry to acquire land, like vast stretches of land, say over, for big projects. How will you take care of that?
I think
concern?
industry, when I look around industry, both public and private, when I look around government acquisitions, they are sitting on huge amounts of land, much more than they actually require. So in fact, the shoes on the this will force people to acquire the right amount of land. In our country,
a lot of
there's
land
a
is
great
acquired.
tendency to acquire the land and sit on that land for a long time. And I can tell you, I have grown up in public sector complexes. All my life I've lived in public sector complexes. And I've always wondered, how is it we are a people surplus land deficit country, but we treat land as if the profligate use of land in our country.
And there's no
we treat it
regeneration.
as if, we are just overflowing with land. We are a land hungry, a land deficit country. We must recognize this. And the price of land must reflect that scarcity value of land.
Why did you choose to merge the R&R part of it with the land acquisition?
That's a very fair question. 2007, there were two bills. 2009, there were two bills.
And this is your brainchild, to merge
Well,
the
yeah, it was a recommendation of the National Advisory Council. Mr. Rahul Gandhi also had suggested the same approach to the Prime Minister. And I also independently believe that we need to have one bill. How can I say that, look, for land acquisition you refer to this bill, for R&R you refer to some other bill? It doesn't make any, it's common sense, let's have one integrated role, because land acquisition and R&R are two sides of the same coin.
That's right.
When you're acquiring land, you're also doing R&R. So why not make it part of the same legislation? I think it was a common sense. It was no great rocket science. It was not some great eureka aha moment, but it was, I think, a commonsensical approach to it.
What is the most scathing criticism that you've received after you've introduced the bill, and what was the maximum opposition to your draft?
I think the main worry is whether this will make, this will jack up the cost of projects. As I have said, it will increase the cost of land acquisition, no doubt about it. But I don't subscribe to the doomsday scenarios, of many of these trade bodies and industry associations. I do believe that land, we must pay the right price for land. We must acquire it under the most transparent and just manner possible. And, we have specified, one criticism is, we have no objection to what you have proposed, but it will actually be implemented. This is the other criticism, that, R&R is there, land acquisition compensation package is there, but will they actually do it? But this is a law. And we have provided for penalties for contravention of these provisions.
Yeah. 55 days into the job, you brought out a legislation that will perhaps determine how everything happens from here on as far as land acquisition, industrial projects is concerned. What's next on the radar?
You mean as far as this legislation is concerned, it goes to the standing committee. The Prime Minister meets the Chief Ministers around the 15th of October. The standing committee will call for, comments and suggestions. Hopefully the standing committee will give its report.
Are you expecting any changes?
No, I don't think the basic structure will be tampered with. There will be, some suggestions here and there for tightening, for clarifying, so on. But I don't expect some major dramatic changes in the legislation. And I hope that, by December we will get their report, and, in the winter session of Parliament we will be able to pass this bill.
Well, that's all in this edition of ET Insight. We'll be back next week, but until then, don't forget to write in with your feedback and suggestions. Thanks so much for watching.